Well, we will welcome our friend Viva Frei in just a few minutes here. He has a report on ostriches. You know, he's been very focused on the ostrich farm fiasco. He, of course, hosts the Viva Frei show on Rumble and Locals and Viva and Barnes. He'll give us an update on many topics, but speaking of many topics, Andrew Wilkow. He is the host of the Wilkow Majority weekdays on Sirius XM. He began his radio talk show career in college. We've got a lot to talk about in terms of revisiting the old days of radio. There's much to go through in terms of so many things in the news today, including what's going on in New York City with the mayor-elect, as well as we'll talk about tariffs. There's a lot to get into, including see if we can revisit Tish Hyman, who I hope to interview one day soon. So we'll be back with Andrew Wilkow right after this.
Our laws as it pertains to substances are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
Next year, the national debt is going to hit $40 trillion. As insane as that sounds, it's even worse when you consider unfunded liabilities for Social Security and Medicare. If our status as the world's reserve currency suddenly changes, our nation could collapse under the weight of its debt. And as we all know, there are many forces trying hard to take down that U.S. dollar. This is why thousands of Americans are moving portions of their retirement into physical gold and silver. Our friends at Augusta Precious Metals have put together a 3-minute report entitled Debt Will Hit $40 Trillion in 2026. Prepare your retirement now. It details how a self-directed IRA with real physical assets may be the best option in 2025. Go to drdrew.com/gold. That is DRDREW.com/GOLD. Or text Drew, DREW, to 35052. That's 35052. And you'll get instant access to this crucial report. If you have $50,000 or more in your IRA, 401k, TSP, or other retirement accounts, consider our friends at Augusta Precious Metals to give you the information you need to make an informed decision about your retirement. It's fine to fight for our nation's future, but we all need to protect our own futures first. Read this important 3-minute report by visiting drdrew.com/gold. That is drdrew.com/GOLD. Or text Drew to 35052 and see what Augusta can do for you.
Drew, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I think I superimposed Steve Wilkow on poor Andrew, which must drive him absolutely crazy. You can follow Andrew on X, Wilkow Majority, WILKOW. Andrew, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, sir.
So I'm sure Steve Wilkow gets bled into your name once in a while, and I apologize for being part of that.
It has happened many times over the years. No offense taken.
So I want to do a quick walk down memory lane for radio, because you got involved in radio in college, in talk radio. Tell me about that.
I was doing sort of music radio, and then I just started using what time I had to kind of do what I wanted to do. I mean, early on in my radio career, I kind of worked in, you might call it unsanctioned radio, and there were kind of no rules. And then I made my way into FM and still kept doing that. You know, if you're working late nights in a small market and there's really not a lot going on, if you want to make a name for yourself, you took what time you had between songs, and that's where I developed the craft. And then I made the jump to talk radio in 2003.
And that was Mel Karmazin, no?
Yeah, no, that was here in 2006. In 2002, I did a fill-in. I was still a rock DJ, but I was doing my breaks on topics. And I got a call from WABC. They said, we have a weekend guy named Mark Levin, and he's doing a Sunday show, and we need someone on the bench in case he needs a day off. And that was 2002.
Interesting.
And I went and I did my first ever talk radio program, filling in for the great one.
That was in that big office in New York City, in Penn Station, as I remember, at One Penn or Two Penn, something like that. Yeah, that's crazy. And Mel Karmazin was my boss, too, for many years. I mean, he started with Infinity Broadcasting before he went to CBS. And K-Rock, over our little local radio station in Pasadena that became this behemoth, he bought that and built Infinity. And I remember, did you ever have any personal conversations with him?
Yeah, he walked into the room when I was getting hired, and there were all these executives. And he looked right at me and he said, I've hired 2 people around here personally, Howard Stern and now you. And then he sat down and he says, let me tell you the story. He said, I had a rental car. I was going out to the Hamptons. So I didn't have, he said he put on the competition, WABC, just to get the news and traffic. And I inherited Mark's show when he went full time. So when he went to 6 to 9 p.m., which is where he is now, he was doing noon to 2 on Sundays. So I guess he was doing a mid-morning or late early afternoon drive out to the Hamptons, and he heard me doing my thing. And he said, he took out a Post-it note, wrote, hire this guy, put it on the dashboard. And he said, when I heard you, he goes, I heard passion. I heard passion, I heard energy, and I thought you'd be a good fit for our Patriot channel here on Sirius XM. This was 2005. I started the show in 2006. And I remember being so intimidated. Like, this is the guy, right? This is, when you think of the old studio bosses getting called into the gilded office with the big cigar, and so I'm going to make a star out of you. I felt like, okay, the elevator door opened for me, now I'm going to the top floor. That's how I felt.
I talked to Mel once where I heard my own voice, and essentially the conversation was, hey. It was like trying to talk to a Gatling gun or something. It was like, bah, 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 bah. And I thought, wow, this guy really got that energy, that hypomania that so many successful business people have. Well, speaking of passion, let's talk about New York City, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm right here.
We've sort of been here before. Those of us that have lived long enough remember how New York City has been destroyed in the past. Are we going to do it all again?
I wonder if this time is a little bit worse. I was kind of thinking about something before I came in here. They keep talking about young leaders, right? Mondami's young. The guy that ran in Minneapolis didn't win is young. Now we have this woman in Seattle who just won. Young doesn't mean new. Just because you're young doesn't mean what you're saying or what you're promoting is new. But there are people that are going to think it is. It's kind of think of a cover song that you heard and you thought was awesome, and then you found out it wasn't that band's. They were borrowing it from someone else, and you're like, wait a second, that's not this artist's song. And then you have that. If you're going to rip off a band, you better rip off a band that nobody currently knows. You rip off something from the past. And Mondami's not offering anything that is brand new. These ideas of we're going to seize production, or we're going to raise taxes, or we're going to promise to make things free, and democracy doesn't manifest things. The sky doesn't turn purple because you say it turned purple. Healthcare doesn't become free because everybody voted it to be free. That's just the exercise. The practice is totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so odd. I saw someone commentating online saying it's like the Columbia students' playbook is being writ large here, which is these young people that seem to have had no exposure to the history of these ideas, and these ideas have come and gone regularly, and they have failed on the regular. I mean, look no further. I just look at what AOC did to Long Island City. Right, Amazon was on its way there. 40,000 high-paying jobs. There was just a renewed enthusiasm for that part of Long Island, and she pushed them away because she didn't want to give them any tax breaks. Never mind the fact that they were going to bring hundreds of millions of dollars of tax revenue. The breaks to get it set up, she wasn't willing to give them. So you're ripping us off. Scram! It's such a crazy backwards way of thinking.
She bragged about it, like she bragged. And it was like, how could you brag about killing jobs? how could you brag about their
Tens of thousands of jobs. Tens of thousands of jobs. It's the weirdest thing.
These people, you know what it is, especially with the spoiled rich kid. Marx had a chapter where he talked about the bourgeois socialist. And he described the bourgeois socialist as somebody who wanted all of the trappings of the revolution except any threats to their wealth and power. If I'm ever able to ask one question, if I were able to ask Bernie Sanders one question, or any of these advocates for single payer or any of this stuff, are you going to get in line? Because if the thing I notice the most about these, capitalists are fine living with capitalism. Libertarians are fine with living with libertarianism. I don't see socialists living with their own ideas. It's like socialism's for the people, not the socialist. If the idea is so great, why is the first thing that you do is insulate yourself from it?
And what is the problem with, I mean, sort of public and private kinds of systems? I mean, why do we have such an aversion to that in this country? I mean, you know what I mean? We have public and private education. We have could have public and private healthcare. We sort of do, as a matter of fact, in some respects. But why not really lean into that? Because we could make that work.
Do you ever notice that the advocates for government-run education send their own kids to private school? They've reserved themselves.
Listen, look at California. You're out east. In California, we are living this nightmare writ large. It's out of control in California, and of course, Newsom lies and BS's, and it says whatever is convenient, and he takes care of his family and his businesses accordingly.
They really believe that subsidizing something makes it more affordable. If you could show me one thing that's been subsidized by the government that hasn't gotten exponentially more expensive, and then we're talking about more subsidies, I'm all ears. If the plan isn't good enough for the government, why is it good enough for the people? After all, we're the ones that pay for it, or at least some of us pay for it. I can't imagine a nightmare scenario where over 51% of the population is not paying taxes, because then they would vote for any spending measure and have no
Come to California. Welcome to California. We're there.
But that's why half of your state's in Texas right now, is that because some of these ideas, it's not a question of who's got a good heart. I get callers when I say, I don't think the federal government should be running school lunch programs. And they'll say, what, you want to starve kids? No, I said federal government or government. Just because you don't want the government doing something doesn't mean you don't want it done. It means you've seen the government try to do it and you don't think the government's doing a good job. You think that a competitive marketplace will make things better. When the government monopolizes something, there's almost no competition.
Well, there's no competition, and there's no accountability, and there's no accounting for, and there's no oversight. And then people seem to, the people that like that centralized authority and the government-funded, whatever you want, lunches or
promise
school, whatever. Yeah, they like that. They don't imagine that it gets grifted all over the place. It's just absolutely just dissipates. It's consistently true that centralized authority, federal government in particular, is the worst allocator of capital in all our systems. They do the worst job of allocating capital and have the greatest opportunity for corruption and grift, and rarely get the job done they intend to do. It's certainly not the way they intend to do it.
Well, Dr. Drew, the Affordable Care Act is proven to be unaffordable. The risk corridor money was a subsidy for the insurance companies to sell plans they didn't want to sell and couldn't make money on. And then they subsidized the purchase by people who are buying things that they didn't need to buy. So 65-year-old men don't need maternity care. And now we have the government subsidizing both sides of the ledger. And if I always use the example of Springfield, Ohio, where they're eating the dogs. If the market rate for rent on a 2-bedroom apartment is, let's just say arbitrarily $500, and you send migrants into town with $700 a month vouchers, do the landlords keep the rent at $500 or do they raise it to get those subsidies? Of course they raise it. It's the perverse incentive. If you're putting money into the marketplace, the prices will rise to capture that money that you're putting into the marketplace. And then if you come along and say, well, then we got to fix prices. Now you've got what you just said. You've got the centralization of capital and it all comes crashing down.
I don't understand why people can't get this, but apparently Kathy Hochul understands that she cannot make something free that is barely solvent with fee for service. Tell us about that.
You mean the rolling homeless shelters that he's proposed? Because if you think New York Transit is bad now, and I mean quality, wait till it's free. The reason why she's not going to sign on to this is because she's going to be getting phone calls from Democrats in Nassau County, Suffolk County, Rockland County, Westchester County, Putnam County. Remember, it was Giuliani that ended the commuter tax. I would bet anything that Mamdani, when he starts to run into walls, gets advice, hey, you know where a lot of money's coming into the city? People who work here and go back out to the island or back out to the southern part of what we call upstate, if you're from where I'm from, Nassau County. Yeah. He's going to try, but he can't do any of these things because of the bankruptcy of the 1970s. Basically, any major move made by the city of New York has to be approved of by the state assembly, the state senate, and the governor.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that. Is that something that got passed as a result of the bankruptcy?
Yeah. Yeah. He can't. They can't raise taxes in the city without a vote. Without a vote in Albany.
Oh, that's interesting. So, how does he plan to get all his BS done?
I don't know. When they talk about seizing the means of productions, it's not 1925. There aren't textile mills, from 34th Street South. You don't have manufacturing in the city anymore. If he starts to threaten Jamie Dimon, there's more Chase employees in Texas. He could invert that company out of the city and goodbye Chase Manhattan.
Yeah. But that doesn't seem to worry them. I heard Anthony Scaramucci talking about a meeting he had with Wall Street leaders, and he was arrogant and demanding and sort of negating. Like, you guys think you're in control here. No, I'm in control. New sheriff in town. You better get with it and listen to what I'm telling you. He's telling that to the likes of Jamie Dimon. How's that going to go?
Ron DeSantis is really happy. Greg Abbott's really happy. If you're a real estate agent on Long Island, or I live in northern New Jersey, you're really happy. Look, if you've got the kind of money that you don't have to really be, there's things you love about New York City. There's no denying it, right? Yeah. Cultural amenities that you just don't get anywhere else. And people from LA would say the same thing. And the truth is you love it and you put up with certain things. But when push comes to shove, Florida's pretty nice, right? I mean, there's a lot of New Yorkers in Florida. The weather's pretty good. The taxes are 0% income tax at state level.
I don't know if you spend any time in Florida, but people are happy down there. They are so freaking happy compared to everywhere else. It is really kind of astonishing. Yeah. So what was the other thing I wanted to talk to you about? Hang on one second here. Oh, yeah, tariffs. What do you make of the that court decision, Supreme Court decision on tariffs and how that's going to go and how the money would go back if tariffs are outlawed? And I don't even understand. They must be war rooming how to deal with this if it goes south on them.
Well, this is the bizarre thing. There have been multiple acts of Congress, which I don't know how wordy and nerdy you want me to get, but there's a phrase, non-delegation doctrine. The Congress can't pass its authority to the president in the Constitution, but they do, so they don't have to take responsibility for anything. So 1933, 34, you got the Reciprocal Trade Act. You've got the Trade Act of 1964, 1977, the Emergency Powers Act. Congress has given the president lots of authority to regulate commerce with foreign nations, even though that's an explicit power in the enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8. But foreign relations are strictly dealt with by the executive branch, but for treaties ratified by the Senate. The president was looking at tariffs as a way to get better trade deals. When he started talking about $2,000 checks, I was like, ooh, no, don't do that. The Democrats are rubbing their hands. if you want to say the president has to have a temporary power like the War Powers Act to say to China or Japan or Germany, hey, you're VAT taxing our cars, that's not free trade and that's not fair. I'm gonna slap some on you, Canada. You got a 250% tariff on American dairy products. Bring it down and we'll go zero tariffs. That, I think, is something that the president, I guess, should have, or Congress should back him up on it. I don't want to see tariffs becoming a revenue driver. I want to see them open up markets to American goods. India has a 100% tariff on American rice. They need rice really bad. They got like 1 billion people. So if Modi is protecting whatever industry he has, that's not fair to trade for us. With that said, I don't know, why is the court reviewing that power now? They've had the last big trade act was 1977. Why is no one? Biden had this power. Obama had this power. Obama and Biden laid tariffs on foreign goods. Nobody said it was a violation of the Constitution. Nobody said, well, they're stealing powers from Congress, even though Congress gave these powers to the presidency going back to FDR. So why are they complaining now? Is it because of Trump or what? And don't tell me you don't like something because it's being taxed.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And I mean, obviously, no one took this to the Supreme Court previously, and that's the reason. But more importantly, I think you're absolutely right. I think he is using it as a negotiating instrument and as an offensive instrument in certain respects. But it's ultimately he wants the tariffs to be lowered and to be made fair. And in the meantime, he'll accept the revenue. Fine, bring it on. I'll take the money from you in the meantime. And so, to me, I don't know. I worry the Supreme Court is going to have a narrow interpretation of this. In which case, doesn't he have to go to Congress and get the right to do this or get the power to do so? And then how's that going to go?
The power to regulate commerce with foreign nations is an explicit power of Congress, but so is the declaration of war. And we have this thing called the War Powers Act that presidents routinely use to deploy troops for 90 days, then seek authorization, which you're now 90 days into a conflict. And Congress is, no one wants to just pull the troops out. But if you're going to say presidents have to quickly react to global events, I would say this is very late. Where were our Republican and Democrat presidents when the Chinese were tariffing our goods or stealing our intellectual property, or the Germans made it impossible to sell American automobiles? Meanwhile, you can't drive down a street in America without seeing a BMW or a Mercedes or an Audi or a Volkswagen. Right. Now, if the Germans don't want to drive American cars, fine, but we should be able to sell them without paying penalties to the government of Germany.
Have you had an eye on what's going on down in Brazil with that climate conference? Are you watching that at all?
Yeah, the BBC reported that they dozed tens of thousands of acres to build a highway to bring 50,000 people to this climate summit, landing in private jets, driving in limousines. I mean, the carbon. You and I are talking over this crazy little technology thing here. You're telling me these people couldn't have their little climate summit on Zoom? I mean, I'm not flying out to California. You're not putting budget out for that. I have no carbon footprint to do your program. And then you got Gavin Newsom down there talking about how he's leading the way. We have this crazy thing called the Logan Act. Governors are not allowed to entangle themselves in foreign agreements.
Yes. Oh God, his presentations down there were just so cringy. That how he's the representative of the climate management in the United States. He has ruined California, ruined it, and along the way done no forestry management, which is the greatest.
There's the highway right there on the screen. They dozed the rainforest.
And their private jets came in. Look, and all the surrounding population in this place in Brazil don't have plumbing, don't have sewage. What do they want those people to be net zero? Give me a break.
Well, they'll be happy watching the Range Rovers go by. Gavin, did he say?
It seemed like Bill Gates softened, right?
Yeah,
Bill Gates has softened on this. Yeah,
he said we're not dying from this stuff, but that $2.2 billion taxpayer-funded solar facility that you have in California just went under. Is how do you say Iventa? I don't know how to pronounce it.
It was, I know, Caleb, you can find pictures of this thing. It's the most insane thing. People fly over it and they really think they're flying over some sort of like some alien craft had landed and set this thing up. It's thousands of mirrors focused at a water tower to create steam to turn a turbine. And guess what happens in the middle of the desert when you fire thousands of mirrors? The heat at the water tower is you fry every bird for miles around. The thing is a huge circumference, and they killed tens of thousands of birds, destroyed the ecosystem. And guess what? Those mirrors and those water towers, they're not taking them down. They're just leaving them out in the desert. It's just this giant blight on the ecosystem.
And
you should show pictures of it, Caleb.
And yet you protect the Delta
there it
smelt.
is. Yep. There it is. It just goes on forever. And that glowing that you're looking at is actually, it's so hot from the mirrors directed at that tower. And then it turns a turbine. Big deal. So, okay, well done. It did nothing. It collected nothing. Those are the mirrors out in the desert. It accomplished nothing, and it killed thousands of birds. Well done, you guys. Oh, just an experiment. Billions of dollars wasted again. No sense of remorse or soul searching on how they're spending taxpayer dollars. Nothing. Just here we go. Let's do another one. Let's do something else. Let's turn San Francisco into a shithole.
And yet you'll protect the Delta smelt. I love talking to people in California, and I'm like, when's this aqueduct system of yours supposed to be completed? How did you run out of water? You have a water czar in LA that makes $750,000 a year, and there was no water in the reservoirs, and the excuse was, well, the power went out. You don't have backup for the reservoirs? Yeah. That sounds like something that for the taxes you pay out there, somebody should be on that.
Yes, we have incompetence, though. We have that, and we have people that aren't. But the Californians aren't really interested in governing. They're interested in talking, and they're interested in serving ideas. And the ideas, unfortunately, that they're getting their heads around are divorced from the human experience. They're not pragmatic in any way. They're not involved with governing. They're not involved with solving problems or helping people thrive. And they're embedded in these ideologies that are not related to the human experience. It's not how humans work.
No. And again, back to that outbound migrant. Gavin Newsom is out there. I think he's chasing a trend that is on the tail end. That I've been likening him to the mouthy lead singer of a hair metal band in 1991. That he doesn't know that grunge is happening and he's chasing something. He is out there trying to out-Trump Trump. MAGA, as we know, stylistically, is going to change. It's not, J.D. Vance is not going to be doing the dance with the red hat.
No.
He's not, J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and DeSantis don't have the same delivery. Gavin Newsom is barbing at someone that he's not running against. That's the bizarre thing. He's going after the person he's not running against. And 2028 is going to be here, but it is a long way off. We're not even at the 26 midterms yet. And he's already out there acting like a presidential candidate. The problem with that is peaking too soon. And that's happened before. And I think Gavin Newsom is, one, chasing something that's coming to an end. Two, he's likely to peak too soon. Because there are going to be other Democrats that get in. This is a party that doesn't really like middle-aged white guys.
You took a shot at the $2,000 rebate from the tariffs. What do you make of that?
I don't think we should do it. For the simple reason, then we've crossed that Rubicon of using trade as a negotiating tool to now the revenue driver. And if, let's say, look, I don't know what's going to happen in 26. I think the Democrat brand is pretty damaged, but 28 it's going to be a reset. Primaries on both sides, right? I can't tell you who might emerge from the Democrat side and possibly win. The pendulum does swing. I don't want to hand that power to a Democrat administration. I would rather pay down the debt with that money. I would rather see that debt. We were watching your commercial for physical gold, good investment, by the way, I would rather not get to $40 trillion in debt. If there's going to be a surplus from tariff revenue, then put it towards the debt, but don't make it a redistributive thing.
Yeah, and again, did we not learn through COVID that all serves inflation, and that's about all. It doesn't really do much else. It certainly hasn't shown to. What's in your crosshairs these days? What's on your mind?
Oh, the one thing about Gavin Newsom, I had called it way out during the Palisades fire. I said, no way is he going to let these people rebuild their homes. They're going to want that land for densified urban style, low-income living. And then they signed that bill into law not that long ago, taking away local control of zoning. And I was admittedly gloating on the air. I said, see, I told you this was going to happen because that was Obama's dream with the affirmatively furthering fair housing. A lot of what we try to do, of course, stay on the news, stay on what's going on, stay on the big topics. But a lot of the question, like I said earlier, talking about the people who are proposing ideas. What are your ideas and how do they work? Please walk me through this, Mom Donnie. Walk me through this AOC. And the one thing, and I might get in a little trouble here, I noticed that in our business, there's a lot of personalities barbing at each other and ideas are getting lost. Yes, you can get clicks. Yes, you can get likes. Yes, you can get your clips on the aggregating sites and in TikTok and Twitter and all that. But what are your ideas? These people are talking about socialism and communism, but they're not telling us how it's going to work. I want people who think like me, think like you, to spend as much time as they can walking through the ideas. But I would love it. I would love Bernie or Mondant or any of these people to walk me down the lane. Okay, this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen. But they aren't doing that. They say Republicans, Bernie will say, healthcare is a human right, and Republicans want people to die. Well, that's not true, Bernie. But how does that function? It can't function like the UK. We have 350 million people. There's no EU single-payer system. They each have their own. So tell me how it's going to work and what the plan is if it doesn't.
You're just talking about policy. Why can't politicians talk about policy? Because most of them don't have any, or they are not. I don't know. I worry about the American voter that they'd rather get into these personality conflicts and these.
That's what I mean.
These talk about feelings, things that make them feel a certain way, rather than really help. What do we do to help people thrive? What kinds of things are useful from a governance standpoint that
Jasmine
really
Crockett's
helps
doing just fine. These people are thriving. That's what bothers me the most. Is I see these younger, I'm 53, so I feel kind of old at times. That I see these younger cats in the podcast space and the social media space, but I don't see them promoting their own participation. It seems like they're trying to actually get wealthy while condemning wealthy people. They're trying to increase their power while saying they're shaking their fist at power. And again, just because you're young doesn't mean what you're doing is new. You seem to be getting rich while you're complaining about that. So if the system is so bad, I got a little frustrated there. If your ideas are so good, why is it you don't want to live with them? Why are you seemingly chastising people as if they need to be chastised for not doing exactly what you say? And by the way, what's your experience with these things?
Right. Well, Senator Crockett will be with us soon. I don't know if you saw that, but
yeah. We're going to have Senator AOC here.
Well, that will be very interesting.
She's going to wipe the floor with Chuck Schumer.
I appreciate you being here. Where do you want people to find you?
On Twitter at Wilkow Majority. You can just search my name on Facebook, SiriusXM Patriot, noon to 3 East, 9 to noon West.
Andrew, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, sir. Cheers.
All right, we're going to take a little break. And a reminder, tomorrow I've got Charlie Sheen and Aaron Cariati in here, both great guests. And we're going to try to make our way back to our home studio from this environment. Obviously, this is not my usual studio environment. And we're going to take a little break and then be back with the one and only Viva Frei.
I've spent most of my career dealing with illnesses that shorten life, and now we have ways to extend it and extend wellness. I've been working with the team over at V-Shred to develop a product that has everything I want in a longevity supplement. NR Boost has nicotinamide riboside. You know how metal can rust? Well, your body behaves in a similar way. It's mediated through something called NAD. NAD falls as we age, so we're less able to fight off that oxidative process. We oxidize much like that metal. And NAD fights it, but nicotinamide riboside elevates NAD so we can push back on those oxidative stressors, improving health, improving longevity. The other product is Senosync, has fisetin, one of the key molecules to fight off zombie cells, and we've added resveratrol to that, which is a well-known anti-aging antioxidant again. I don't like supplements that have a ton of ingredients. To me, it suggests that none of it's working. When I prescribe a medication, I prescribe that medicine because I expect that to work. That is exactly what I've done with these products, and I want you to go to drdrew.com/vshredmd for 10% off. Again, that is drdrew.com/vshredmd. I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it, I make Susan take it, my whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue, and we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. The wellness company knows that taking charge of your family's healthcare is a top priority, and being rationally ready, and who knows what the future will hold for us. Now, TWC has a service to cover your family's medical needs, including and especially prevention. For just $100 a month, the One Wellness Elite membership includes 2 free medical-grade nutraceuticals per month, free prescriptions for over 800 of the most common medications, access to concierge telemedicine, available at a moment's notice, and a 15% discount on all supplements and the emergency kits. 15% off the emergency kits. That's quite a saving. So if you're spending $100 or more on supplements and meds every month, this plan will already save you money. If you sign up for a year, you'll save $200. And when you use the link, drdrew.com/TWC, you'll get 10% off the first payment to the One Wellness Elite membership. Check out One Wellness at drdrew.com/TWC and get 10% off your first payment. drdrew.com/TWC. It's all there.
It wasn't all Dr. Drew or anything.
Why would I screw myself? What am I, Dr. Drew?
Drew, you're muted.
Yes, I'm muted. Sorry about that. Viva Frei, the Viva Frei Show. Also, Viva and Barnes. Follow on X, the Viva Frei, Frei. Let's see. Where else can I tell you? Where should people go for Viva? I guess Rumble typically. Viva, are you there? Welcome. Good to see you, my friend.
Doing.
Oh, you're muted.
Hold on. That's not.
There you are. Now you're back. Now you are back. So I've never seen somebody quite so exorcised about ostriches as yourself. And this has been a campaign of yours for a little while, and it seems like something that wasn't successfully defended.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. Like, not that I think that I had any critical power to actually do anything, but you get emotionally invested when you follow a story for 11 months. And it's the story of, literally, of trying to save animals from a senseless, unnecessary slaughter. I eat. By the way, I eat meat. I've eaten ostrich. I have a bunch of videos where I make ostrich egg omelets on the internet. This has nothing to do with, veganism or, vegetarianism. This just has to do with, senseless slaughter that is representative of a tyrannical government that defies the science it claims to support. So back in December, this ostrich farm out in Edgewood, British Columbia, the birds came down with a virus, the H5N1, allegedly, late December.
Allegedly.
This calls the CFIA and says these birds got infected. The CFIA, which is called the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, it's a Soviet-style federal agency, comes in and says, oh, The birds were infected. They all need to get slaughtered. 60 some odd birds died back in December. The rest survive. They say they survived. They're healthy. Why would we kill them? They appeal the decision. It goes to the federal court. Federal courts are deferential to administrative bodies that are set up. They have expertise. Horse crap. But the federal court, April or May, says, no, the decision of the administrative body was not patently unreasonable. It's been 4 or 5 months that the birds are healthy now, but kill them anyhow. They appealed to the Court of Appeal, and the Federal Court of Appeal in August comes to the same conclusion, ratifies the lower court decision. It's now 8 months after the infection. They're all healthy, 397 healthy ostriches. They say, no, you can go ahead and kill them. They appeal to the Supreme Court, and in the interim, what we're looking at is called the kill pen. Those are all the dead ostriches. In the interim, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, along with their armed Gestapo agents at the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, come in anticipation of this gleeful slaughter and occupy the farm for over 40 days. Set up a kill pen, like 3 bales of hay high, 2 bales of hay wide, with their killing stands on the top, just like in anticipation of the orgiastic glee that when they get to slaughter these animals, they're going to go in and do it. And so, it was a campaign. It was raising awareness. They were doing research on the birds, apparently post-COVID, because the farm used to be open to the public, but COVID hit, they shut down. They discovered allegedly some antibodies in the ostrich eggs that could be used to prevent or treat COVID. In 2021, there's an article in the paper. They were working with a Japanese scientist since that time, and the idea is set aside some questionable elements as to how the bird allegedly got infected, the flock. The birds were, in theory, had immunity or antibodies from the H5N1 avian flu that the government is trying to make the next big thing. And they were hell-bent on killing these animals. And so, we raised awareness. RFK Jr. from the Trump administration offered twice to take these birds for scientific value. Dr. Oz offered some ranch in Florida where they would move the birds. Why would the government say, no, we'd prefer to kill them? And by the way, they don't want to retest them. They never tested any of the birds they killed. This was all based on 2 PCR tests, anal swabs of 2 carcasses in December 2024. Not only did they not test any of the birds before killing them, they prevented the farm from doing it under penalty of $200,000 in fines and 6 months in jail if they tested any of the birds per test. And Supreme Court, after 40 some odd days of sitting on this, like a bunch of lazy people, come in and they say, 1 paragraph, appeal dismissed. And that night, the CFIA, with their snipers, whoever the hell they were, slaughtered the entire bunch. And there weren't as many as they should have had under their care. 40 plus days of torture, neglect. One of the ostriches died of dehydration because the CFIA didn't know how to feed or treat them. They shot them, something like 900 or 1,000 shots went off to kill these animals. They left their carcasses out to rot for at least a day, if not more, and it's been more, from what I understand. Apparently, they had to go and decapitate some of them in the morning because they might have survived the initial shots that they got. They then, in cleaning up the horror, just go spread the blood-soaked hay around the fields. That's how they're going to get rid of it. Because it was such a health crisis that they went and sprayed their organs and their juices and their fluids and everything all over the fields, left it open for scavengers to come in. And they got what they wanted, this tyrannical regime that's known as the Canadian government, with the armed branch of their government, the RCMP, with the propagandist arm of their government, the CBC, with their state-funded propagandist scientists feeding all the lines that you need to feed to the CBC. They came in and slaughtered 300 some odd birds because they said that they were infected a year ago. Too expensive, too inconclusive to do any more tests. Never tested the birds, and they were just like demonic beings that need bloodlust. They had to come in there and kill them in the most horrific way possible. And it didn't get the traction. I was not say traction. It's like, it's not a popularity contest. I wanted, the Rogans of the world, Elon Musk, to get involved and say, Trump to get involved and say, if you kill these birds, we're going to impose retaliatory tariffs. These birds could have worldwide interest, scientific value if they indeed survived the H5N1 virus. And the Canadian government says 2 middle fingers to the Trump administration, and we're going to slaughter them in the most brutal, horrific manner to traumatize the farm owners, to traumatize Canadians, and to let you know you are not in control of your destiny in that communist regime that's known as the Canadian government.
Well, I've got a few questions. First, a comment, not the least of which I did not expect to ever speak the words anal swab of ostriches on this program, but thank you for allowing me to go there. Viva. Be that as it may, what would they say was their defense? I mean, what was the argument that they presented that was so persuasive to the courts?
Hold on, let me get my dog here. The argument to the courts was that you don't get
nice.
This is, I have one blind dog, one paralyzed dog. The argument was not persuasive to the court.
This isn't the blind one though, is he? Or is he? Yes. Yeah.
Some lenticular. But
Nice.
no, not persuading the Federal Court of Appeal. It was basically saying we are a specialty tribunal, an administrative tribunal set up because we have expertise. We get it's the exact opposite of the Chevron decision in the States and the deference to these administrative bodies. In Canada, they say the government decided that these bodies, they have an expertise. They got to set their own rules, interpret their own rules, and apply their own rules. And the courts are not set. They don't have sufficient expertise to get involved. So barring a patent.
Okay, all right. I get the court, the legal side of it, but what is the regulatory side of it? What did they think they were doing?
Question, Drew. Oh, sorry. Good question. This is ironic because what they thought they were doing, it's called the stamping out policy. That's the globalist policy that our Canadian government has nationalized. It's literally a policy of the globalist institution called the WOAH, and it's literally called WOAH, the World Organization of Animal Health, WOAH. It's a WEF, globalist adjacent, WHO adjacent globalist entity. And they have a stamping out policy to preserve trade of poultry. That was the argument, because I actually got into an online argument with the doctor. I don't know if I should mention her name or not.
Please.
This is the expert that went on CBC to say why it was necessary to kill them, because the tests are too expensive, they're inconclusive, you can get false negatives, and you don't know how long these birds are contagious for after surviving. 11 months out, they might still be shedding. And it was such a danger, such an urgency, that they had to be slaughtered in a manner that spread their organs and guts and blood and juices all over the place.
Right.
So the reason was actually that Canada has entered into or abides by this World Organization of Animal Health stamping out policy. So when a flock gets infected, those survivors have to get stamped out. That's how you're going to stamp out the H5N1. It makes no sense, but it is purely a globalist WHO policy that our globalist infiltrated WHO WEF3 passport carrying globalist whore government of Mark Carney is implementing at the national level. And the argument is to preserve the poultry trade, because if they didn't do it, people wouldn't feel safe buying poultry from Canada. These ostriches were not for human consumption at this point. They might have been, earlier on pre-COVID. They were not for human consumption. It wasn't open to the public. And the only reason they said there was a risk is because migratory birds could come through and catch the avian flu from this flock that survived and then spread it about. So in order to preserve trade agreements, international trade agreements under the WOAH, the World Organization of Animal Health, they had to be stamped out because there's no pity, no remorse, no second chances at life, and no studying them for having survived.
This wouldn't have really interested me so much were it not for we're being on the heels of COVID, which is such a source of immense frustration that rationality and thoughtfulness and scientific inquiry and dialogue is something that was stamped out during COVID, and to see something similar going on now for no good reason, it's just it gets the outrage going again, right? And by the way, humans don't get bird flu yet. We might one day. We get a little conjunctivitis, maybe a cough. It's treated effectively with the usual antivirals. The birds that get it die or survive. I'm imagining. You can't, I don't know for sure, but I don't think you'd be able to get bird flu by eating an infected bird. You cook it, kills everything. So what are they worried about except somebody having a little panic about other birds being infected?
Drew, they parade around.
What's the matter? Oh, Susan's pointing at the sunset. I'm like, what? Is everything okay? So, wasn't there a movie scene like that?
A nice sunset a couple hours ago. But no, Drew, it's incidentally and not for nothing, it's the actual same people. You can go back to their Twitter feeds, the same scientists, the same COVID, pooping on RFK Jr., TD. And it's, I was going to say something about the birds. Now I forgot what I was going to say. But The same tyranny.
I'll tell you what, I talked to a Canadian today, and she said that there are people still wearing masks and isolating their kids in not Alberta, but Saskatchewan. And what's next? What's between Alberta and Saskatchewan?
Well, there's Manitoba.
In Manitoba. And that we've really made people so sick that they're wearing masks and not letting their kids go to school. We're how many years after COVID being a real illness, serious illness, and not only that, but they've apparently infected the brains. In this country, it's all the urban centers that have and to be fair, I mean, in concentrated areas, there's more respiratory and infectious diseases, and people can do what they want to do as far as wearing masks and whatnot. But way out in the country, in Manitoba or wherever the hell, my understanding is the little communities got infected, much the way the urban communities did here. Have you heard that? By infected, I mean infected with these horrible ideas. I mean disturbed, rendered mentally ill is what I'm talking about.
You cross the border into Canada, you're entering an insane asylum. And I'm saying there's a lot of good, peace-loving and God-loving and freedom-loving Canadians. You enter an insane asylum. You go to Toronto, it's an insane asylum. Montreal, asylum. Ottawa, asylum. And I remember what I was going to say.
For what? For what? What is it? What's the asylum? What are they sick with?
Face masks. People are walking around with outdoor with face masks. They are so into the Trump derangement syndrome. It's the only distraction they have. Misery up in Canada, our own miserable government. But what I was going to say is the H5N1. You like you say, no human in Canada has died from H5N1. They rely on this one of a 14-year-old girl. I think it was from British Columbia. The media always invokes her. She was hospitalized. She had underlying health issues, and she was mistreated. And so that one kid is the reason why they say it's such a danger. I was on with Alex Jones earlier today, and he said he put an idea in my head, which I think it's not outrageous, is that they wanted to build up the H5N1 into the same COVID panic. And it would not be in the government.
Yes, they did.
And so, he says, what if the government implanted in this flock and then the flock didn't die the way they wanted them to? They knew it wasn't a big enough deal. Alex. The way the outbreak in December broke out makes no sense. Flying over, they land, and the birds got sick. And then some anonymous whistleblower calls the government agency, and they get their hooks in, and they destroy the entire. Or stealing the eggs. They killed the birds. So H5N1 is the risk. They're stealing the eggs. So it's quite clear something else is going on here. I think it's farm induced. But the bottom line, too many Canadians are sitting there saying, well, that's what you get when you're in the farming business. People think they were there to be eaten. People think they were there for human consumption. People say, well, they're just birds. They're going to get compensated. Like a compensation for a chicken is the same as a compensation for an ostrich, because that's what they're going to get compensated, if anything. But apparently the CFIA and the government's going to actually go in there and demand that they pay them for the 40 days of occupation and torture. And by the way, when they started shooting the birds, nobody had any advance warning. So the farm owners are hearing gunshots ring out in the night, killing their animals that have been in their family for 35 years. And Canadians, insane asylum that it is, are just too many, not all of them, but too many, are saying, well, it's a stamping out policy. That's what the experts say. They've learned nothing. They've gotten dumber and more subservient, and that country is going to hell in a handbasket because it's got a tyrannical WEF globalist government, and it's got nothing of an opposition in that feckless coward, Pierre Poilievre.
How do you really feel about it? But in any event, the H5N1, I talked to Robert Redfield, former director of the CDC, about this, and he actually thinks that bird flu could one day be a significant problem because people really get very sick from it, but has the potential to make people sick, even though they are not now. And, presently you can take antiviral medications to good effect if somebody is getting actually ill from it. But it just leads me to think and I predicted it. I said this a couple of years ago when they first tried to make a panic around monkeypox and then bird flu. They're just addicted to these hysterias. I said, look, if bird flu does start to make a significant leap to humans, think gain of function. That's why it happened. People are actually concerned about this virus that's been around forever, suddenly going to humans, there must be somebody monkeying with this virus.
And you're also not for nothing, but we had 2 Chinese scientists who had some bizarre connections to Wuhan who fled into China after COVID. Got some minor problems of Chinese Communist Party infiltration in the Canadian government. Theresa Tam, I believe, is an agent of a foreign country in head of our health in Canada. But you know what's a bigger risk to humans than no deaths from H5N1? Mass starvation. And people look back to Soviet Russia and say, how did 20, 30 million people starve to death? It's when the government came in and nationalized farming. And when the government comes in and slaughters tens of millions of chickens, takes over farms, kills cattle, now that allegedly an animal reserve. This is how the government gets involved and causes mass starvation. Now, modern era, maybe, but that's how it starts.
No, look, Russia, China, they all did it, right? That's one of the main ways they killed hundreds of millions of people ultimately. My family fled Ukraine just prior to the Holodomor, which was a sort of a farm, sort of weird social. People understand what that was, where Stalin went in there and just pitted one Ukrainian against the other, particularly people that were food producers. If they produced enough food to sustain their family without starvation, they were to be they were suspect and were to be punished. I mean, this is while everybody else then starved because these people couldn't produce enough food to support, let alone their family, anybody else. It was really the Holodomor was a terrible, terrible thing.
Great the Ukrainian famine. There's some dispute as to whether or not it was deliberately targeting Ukrainians, but it was my grandmother left Russia in the late her family left in the late 1800s. This was just because of pogroms, not the Ukrainian famine. But people ask, like, how could tens of millions of people have starved under socialism, communism? This is exactly how. Government gets involved. This crisis is manufactured out of whole cloth. But I do have a sincere and deeply held belief that the reason why Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the so-called conservative, so-called opposition, he didn't say a damn thing about it, Drew. And I was needling him on Twitter. Like, my comments were ratioing every post that he put. I was like, what about the ostriches? What about the ostriches? He finally answered one question, and they say, what do you think about the ostrich crisis? And he says, well, I blame it on liberal corruption, liberal incompetence, and pivots into liberal incompetence. He hasn't said a word since they've been slaughtered, and I have no doubt it's because Big Pharma is behind this. And Pierre and the conservatives. This is my theory. There is, that I'm going to sound like Alex Jones here, but I've got my theories and they're well based. We've got massive contracts with Moderna.
Go ahead.
The Liberal government just, they're building a super hyper duper mega $500 million vaccine plant from Moderna. They're in all their medical success, they've never produced anything. They've got a massive factory that they're building up in outside of Montreal in Laval. We had our supply advisor. I firmly believe that they knew that there was some scientific value to these birds, and that they by the end of the occupation, there were not 330 ostriches that were under the custody of the CFIA when they first took them. Blue bins were moving in and out. And by the end of it, there were more roosters to hens than there were in the beginning. In the beginning, it was like 2 to 3 hens to rooster. And the hens are more scientifically valuable. I'm convinced that these birds had something of scientific value, and that in 2 to 3 years, guys are going to come out with a miracle vaccine to treat H5N1, and it will be because they stole from this farm, slaughtered, and stole the eggs that had the anti.
Oh, look at you. What a fascinating theory. That's very interesting. Okay. All right. We'll see.
Pierre is a coward, but even a coward knows what's politically expedient. His omission to deal with this was deliberate, and it looked like he's controlled, and I believe that he is. And some people are saying it's the globalists. Yeah, and Big Pharma, because Big Pharma got those globalist contracts for putting out that toxic COVID jab, and they're going to, they've stolen the research to put out something else in 2 to 3 years. Bookmark it, people.
All right. We will, the future will predict, whether or not you predict the future will be one day, we'll figure that out. Quickly, I want to switch my attention away from Canada and to the United States, and I want you to put your legal mind on again the tariff issue that's being considered in the Supreme Court. What's your prediction on that? Speaking of predictions.
So I'm going to. This is not my information. This is Barnes and I talk about it, and I defer to people who I know more about things. We've talked about it for a long time, and Robert Barnes, Viva and Barnes Law for the People, Sunday night, 6:00 people, across all platforms. We had been saying that for a while. The idea that Trump was invoking this Emergencies Act type legislation to impose tariffs Well, he kind of undermined his argument for that when he basically used it as a political cudgel. And I don't say that as a blaming thing. I think it was an effective thing to do. But it undermined the legal basis for invoking it. And it seems that Gore was amenable to that idea or sensitive to that idea in one of the questions that he asked, which was, so all you have to do is declare anything a crisis and you can impose, blanket tariffs across any and all products.
Right.
Allegedly, I'm told in the markets, it was right after that question that the markets tanked for the likelihood of the ratifying or legitimizing Trump's invocation of this act for the purposes of the tariffs. He didn't do himself any favors in using it like a political tool as opposed to an emergency measure. But then the question that I had to Robert and to others is, the Supreme Court might come in and say, okay, it wasn't a lawful use of the Emergencies Act, but practically speaking, you can't order the reimbursement of hundreds of billions of dollars that might have devastating impacts. So they might do something like, it was problematic the way he invoked it. Now it's up to Congress to go ratify it so that we don't bankrupt the country in having to reimburse all of these tariffs.
Exactly. All right. So you're predicting a resolution ultimately in favor of using and sustaining the tariffs. May not come through the executive branch, but the Congress will have to do it.
I think they're not going to want to bankrupt the country, but they're also not going to want to. The legal decision is going to be that it was an excessive use or ultra virus, the purpose of the act. They're going to leave Congress a room to remedy it.
They better get to it soon because the Democrats, I do believe, would sink the country to sink Trump. They are that angry with his stuff. And they would screw all of us.
Well, no, absolutely. And they say, absolutely. They would say, look what Trump made us do, or look what Trump did, and now we've got more socialism. But it's something I said this on Twitter, and it's kind of good. Is or I say good. Trump got elected on the promise of a populist revolution, and now I am realizing what happens when the people feel betrayed on the promise of a populist revolution. They feel tempted by the promise of a socialist revolution, and I think we've seen something like that in the last elections there with Mamdani. And if the populist feels betrayed or loses hope, they'll be tempted by the snake oil promises of a socialist revolution, and that's how you get Democrats who are more extreme than the ones you have in power.
Is that what you're predicting? Or you're just worried about it?
I was going to say every fear hides a wish. I would say I want to predict it because my predictions are more often than not wrong when it comes to politics. I look at morning. They better start fixing things up and not inviting Albert Bourla to the White House, not having dinners with Zuckbucks, who's an architect in the disaster in which we're currently living, and not betraying what were the promises of this MAGA populist movement. You can't do it and then blame the people for reacting when you don't follow through on and or even at worst betray some of those promises. They've done a lot of great stuff. The border's very good. Fighting crime is fantastic. It's been an abject disaster with the Epstein files, and it's only getting worse. The H-1B.
Do you think that Epstein file thing seems like so much nothing to me? That's the Virginia Guthrie stuff that's already been out there. No,
not today's release. Just the binder gate, the entire administration, the way the administration,
the way that was played out, the way it played out. Yeah.
You're pushing this, not my constituency. Like that. It's wild. But they've got time, I think, to right the ship. But this last, the elections of 2 weeks ago. It's a darn stark indication of where the midterms are going to go if they don't start fixing things up fast.
Viva Frei, everybody. Tell them once again where to find you.
Viva Frei on Rumble, the Viva Frei for a potty mouth Twitter. I've been referring to the RCMP as a terrorist organization a lot because they've betrayed Canada. So yeah, Viva.
Hold on. Dudley Do-Right is a terrorist? That's hard for me to get my head around.
The current RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, are the terrorist branch of the Canadian government. Like people seem to have already forgotten what they did during the Ottawa trucker protest, when they beat veterans, when they stomped elderly.
I remember that. Yeah.
And then bragged about it in internal text messages. Now they didn't sit there. They partook in a slaughter that was the most unjust, disgusting thing ever. They're the armed branch of a terrorist organization. What they did was pure terror. So all that to say, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. And if you just put in Viva Frei in the search engine, you'll find me.
FREA. Viva, great to see you, my friend.
Have me on.
All righty. So coming up tomorrow for us, we have Charlie Sheen, as I said. I'll hopefully be back in our Pasadena studio by then. Charlie Sheen and Aaron Cariotti, the psychiatrist that stood up for the bioethics that he had been advocating his entire career and lost his career for that. Zhao Ying Summers coming back. Terrence Harnett coming in. Elaine Kulati. We have Jay Palantinier. Ryan Sickler's before I get him in here. Rob Henderson. Dr. Chloe Carmichael, psychologist committed to the freeing psychological training from encumbrances and ideology. Got a lot coming up, but tomorrow at 2:00, Charlie Sheen, Dr. Aaron Cariotti, that's interesting. We appreciate you being here. Let me quickly look at the restream, make sure everyone is good here. Susan is outside. I know where I saw it. Somebody looking at the sunset, the way Susan was looking at it, was that guy on acid looking at the double rainbows. That's the way she looked at the. That's the way she looked at the sunset this evening. It was really cool. It was really cool. That's what the double rainbow guy said. C.S. Lewis, robber barons are easy to spot, but the more pernicious tyrannical regimes are the compassionate types, which actually oppress its victims. Yes. Compassion, toxic empathy, everybody. Watch out for that. Look, you are toxically empathic to a drug addict, they will die. That you will kill somebody that way. So this business of, we care so much, be very careful. Everybody cares. Everybody wants everybody to thrive. That's generally true. But how we get there is what people are differing on. And if one group says you're hateful, you're awful because you differ in how to get to a place of human thriving, there's something wrong with that group. So as Marine Le Pen said yesterday or 2 days ago, I see nothing but la haine. La haine. That's it. La haine. Look it up. It's French. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow at 2:00 for Charlie Sheen, Pacific time.
Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. Emily Barsh is our content producer. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.